And out of the back of COVID, obviously there was a lot of shortages in the Australian market for key biologics and devices.
It has highlighted the issues with our supply chain when we are manufacturing so much of our pharmaceutical products overseas. There is not enough skilled candidates in the market for pharmaceutical and med device experience.
Hi, Matt Christensen here from Fuse Recruitment, and we're here to do another episode of Manufacturing Minutes. Today I've got Sam Standfast who's joining us. She works up in our Brisbane office and is one of our team leaders up there, taking responsibility for driving recruitment services through the manufacturing space, but particularly through pharmaceutical med device. We're going to have a bit of a conversation with that. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you. What an intro.
So, look, Sam, I guess, following on from that introduction, and out of the back of COVID, obviously there was a lot of shortages in the Australian market for key biologics and devices. What do you think that the ongoing strategy is likely to be as we move forward, post pandemic and I guess probably post supply chain issues that we see at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, everything we've been through in the past couple of years has been so hard for so many people. But if we can take one positive out of everything that we had to experience, it is that at least it has highlighted the issues with our supply chain when we are manufacturing so much of our pharmaceutical products overseas. So I think it was something like a 300% rise in shortages in certain medications, including Ventolin, which I know a lot of people experienced throughout COVID. So whilst it sucks that it happened, but we've been through it, and now everyone realises that we need to bring all these things back to Australia, manufacture them here, and potentially even benefit on some of the export stuff that we can do.
Yeah, and I know that the Australian government prior to the election had a manufacturing strategy to bring some of these things back and construct product locally. And I noticed that the Labor Party's committed to that strategy effectively with an announcement for $1.5 billion for medical orientated manufacturing. It'd be really interesting to see that. And the other thing I think that probably will be interesting to watch is I guess the maturation of startups. As they start to head towards, scale manufacturing and some of these larger organisations, as to how they're going to resourcing it. Obviously, being a recruitment company, this is very much a space that we're interested in. But do you foresee any challenges from a resourcing point of view as we move forward with strategies like this?
Yeah, definitely. And we're trying to partner some of our clients in that space really strongly now to help work them through that. But ultimately, there is not enough skilled candidates in the market for pharmaceutical and med device experience. Obviously, we're working in a really highly regulated environment, and generally, even with these startup companies, they can look at graduates and new things, but ultimately they do need some people with experience to help lead the way. So we're going to be facing some major issues and working with people to try and work out what strategies can we implement now to help get us what we need over the next couple of years, because the industry is going to continue to grow. And so that might be trying to engage candidates from other regulated industries across to pharma, working with grads, focusing on training and development, probably looking at some relocation assistance and different things as well.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that, again, another marketplace where you can't just drop a person into it and expect them to be able to work in there. There's going to be a lot of upskilling required. Do you see much transition happening from industry to industry as they come into these more controlled environments?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, if we're talking sort of anything pharmaceutical from a complementary medicine perspective, then we have seen people transition from chemical and food industries quite easily. Anything that's a little bit more highly regulated, like your medical device or your drug development, that's probably going to be a much harder step up. But for the other things, I think it's possible.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that obviously a focus on key skill migration will be on the horizon as that pipeline of candidates start to work. And I'm assuming that businesses like ours are going to be fairly busy working with customers to identify skills in other parts of the world to try and get them engaged to work over in Australia.
Definitely now the borders are opening up. Obviously, I think we'll see that influx of skilled migration visas coming back through, especially for the companies that are currently doing a lot of the drug development for us overseas.
Yeah, and do you expect that to be a flood of people in the short term, or do you think it'll be a slow drip through over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think staggered, depending on where people are coming from. I mean, the other thing that we're experiencing here locally is challenges for people relocating in terms of cost of living, house prices. And in Brisbane recently, where I sit, we've had a rental crisis, and candidates that had relocation assistance still couldn't even find somewhere to live to actually go and make the move. So I think it will be a really slow process.
Yep.
So we probably need to focus more on internal development.
Yeah, and I guess then that becomes critical that companies that are in this environment really have a good hard look at their value proposition for employees and how they look at identifying, upskilling, and retaining people.
Yeah, the retainment's a really big piece of that, because I think so many companies are focused on, well, how do we attract new staff? How do we get new people into the business? But ultimately, it's one pillar, but you've got to be looking at the retainment strategies too. How are you going to keep your current staff there and engaged and happy as well?
Yeah, I guess there's no point in spending all your time worrying about people coming through the front door if they're all running out the back door at a greater rate, aren't they? So
yeah.
No, interesting. Pretty buoyant environment. If you're a candidate looking to get into this type of marketplace, do you see the vacancies and the roles that people work in this as, are they exciting? Are they interesting types of work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's lots of opportunity, and I think one of the things that we are seeing is with bringing a lot of that back to Australia, a lot of the companies that are existing, they're going to be building new sites and building bigger sites, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for different project work as well, and improvements. So there's some pretty cool stuff going in for candidates looking to get in. Look, everybody has to start somewhere. Sometimes it needs to be more of an entry-level role, and then you'll be able to work your way up. But what we have seen, especially from some of the graduates that we've placed more recently, is their career progression has been so fast-tracked due to some of these shortages that they're getting opportunities that maybe 10 years ago they might have had to wait 2 to 5 years to be able to get involved in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And what about geographically? Do you see parts of Australia that are going to be hotspots for this type of work, or do you see it spread across capital cities? Is it across urban and rural environments? What do you perceive happening in the future?
Yeah, it's been really interesting watching lately. So, I mean, like I said, I'm based in Queensland, and we've noticed a bit of a shift with companies moving up towards the Sunshine Coast, which isn't really heard of back previously. It's always been sort of CBD based and a little bit more southern suburbs. So I think ultimately they will start progressing out to these areas. One, because the current hubs are so overpopulated with other companies, and ultimately from a candidate pool, you just, unless you're stealing from all the same companies in the same area, it's just not probably going to work. And Adelaide too is really booming from their biotech hub perspective. I went to a biotech industry event recently where they were looking at trying to, I guess, entice overseas investors to come and do their clinical trial studies here. And there was so much representation from Adelaide to be able to facilitate those studies of manufacturing. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I see that in, I'm seated in Victoria. I see that here too. There's definitely little pockets, and I know Sydney very much has a similar type of scenario where there's little pockets. But you've also got to keep an eye on where your workforce is as well, if they're being driven out of certain locations because of things like cost of living or a desire perhaps to move a bit more regional. Then those things need to be considered. But overall, it seems like it's going to be a buoyant part of the marketplace and an expectation that it should be a fairly strongly driven sector for at least the next short to medium term.
Yeah, definitely. We're really excited to see what else is going to happen in the next couple of years. I mean, obviously, to facilitate this growth, there's all sorts of grants and things being given for new sites and stuff. So there's going to be, even what we know is happening now, I'm sure it'll be, multiplied by 4 or 5 times in the next couple of years as more things progress.
No, fantastic. All right, appreciate your time with us, Sam. It was great to get your insights. Once again, I think that no better time than now if you're looking for work or looking for people. It's a pretty buoyant and busy environment, but there's still good skills out there and great opportunity to keep progressing your career through. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us. But Sam, thanks for your time and really appreciate it. And we'll hopefully speak to you in the manufacturing minutes in the next couple of months.
Yeah, definitely. No better time to get into pharmaceutical. It's probably going to be the most stable industry moving forward. So, if anyone's looking to make a move across or needs help, please feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's all for us for this month, and we'll hopefully see you again in the next couple of weeks.